Good morning on Monday, January 30th, and we are back after an unforeseen hiatus. Welcome to episode 170 of the 359 podcast with Ben Fox Rubin and Alfred Ng. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Nice to be back.
Morning. Yeah. We have a lot to talk about today, so we're going to try to cram in a lot in 4 minutes. We're going to start with the tech industry's response to the new Trump immigration ban, also the delete Uber hashtag, which is, of course, related. And then we'll talk about something that's a little more solidly in the tech world, which is Apple's earnings, which are going to get reported tomorrow night. As always, send in your questions and comments. Brian's going to get to all of them, or as many as he can, at the end of the show. And without further ado, let's get this thing going.
Okie dokie. Hang out for a second. We'll be back and checking in with you in the chat after we do the recording. We'll see you in 3 minutes and 59 seconds from 3, 2.
Welcome to the 359. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Alfred Ng.
It looks like the good vibes between the tech industry and President Trump didn't last long. After a bunch of tech leaders, including Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos, and Sheryl Sandberg, met with Trump last month to find ways to work together, many tech execs slammed Trump's new immigration ban. First off, despite the meeting last month, I mean, what do you think these folks? Do you think these folks like really had much of a friendly relationship to begin with?
I don't think so. I think that was kind of more of a formality than anything. Tim Cook himself said when he explained to Apple employees why he attended that meeting, saying you can't, foster a lot of change sitting on the sidelines. You have to play ball if you want to.
Right. So that's why they wanted to have that meeting.
Yeah. So I don't think it was kind of like, hey, we're going to be buddies, but I'm going to see what I can do. Like I'm going to play this game because I have to.
So with all these tech executives calling out the immigration ban, also, do you think that this is really going to fundamentally change the relationship? I mean, like we're kind of discussing that already. Is that they didn't really trust this guy, or they didn't support him during the campaign? It doesn't seem like this is going to materially change much as far as that relationship.
I mean, I think that meeting was more about business, though, and I think this one is more about, standing in solidarity with all their staffers. Google's already mentioned that a lot of their employees will be affected by this travel ban. And that was one of the points that they had brought up, too, with the visas for a lot of their staffers being able to come to the United States. That was a point that they had brought up during their tech summit with him. And now it's just, even if you have a visa, a lot of people are being affected by this.
Yeah. Another flashpoint over the weekend was the delete Uber hashtag in solidarity with protests over the new ban at JFK. The taxi union stopped service for an hour at the airport. Uber, meanwhile, suspended surge pricing there, which was seen as a way of exploiting the taxi strike. Now folks are deleting their Uber accounts. Do you think that that's a justified response?
I think so. I think the best way to get any action or kind of response from a company is a boycott. I mean, we've seen it work, with plenty of companies during the civil rights movement, and I think this was a response to Uber's actions here. I mean, Uber's been defending itself. They've been saying, we didn't do this. We did this. We didn't do this to break the strike. We did this outside of that hour-long, protest.
Yeah, and they put up some money too to try to support their drivers. Do you think that like some of these efforts to quell the outrage is like working or it's helping at all?
I'm not sure if it's working. I do know that even before this immigration ban and this surge pricing issue, Uber's been catching a lot of flack for this because of its CEO serving as one of Trump's economic advisors.
Yeah. I figured that might be related as well. Also, last up, Apple is reporting earnings tomorrow, but don't expect too many fireworks. That's because the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus probably didn't deliver massive sales growth the same way the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus did 2 years ago. We talk about this a lot on the show, but do you think that smartphones are still interesting as far as innovation is concerned, or are we like kind of at a standstill?
I think it's plateaued, but I still think it's interesting. I don't think, we've taken any steps back.
Yeah, well, that's true. But like my biggest concern with the iPhone 7 is that it looks just like the iPhone 6. Do you agree with that? Or
no, it doesn't. It doesn't have a headphone jack.
Oh my God!
It's a very big difference.
That is a huge. That's a huge difference, justifying a lot more money
I
spent.
mean, they're trying to make the push towards more Bluetooth earbuds.
Yes.
I think it's a big difference.
All right. Well, if you want to read more about these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Thanks for listening.
Okay, so as someone who was a little bit disconnected from the news last week, myself,
Lucky you.
Yeah.
fair enough. At some point, we're all just going to go off the grid and go live in caves, which is probably coming sooner than we thought, according to the Doomsday Clock.
CaveNet.
Just send me a Facebook invite to that. Oh, there won't be one.
There won't be one.
There won't be one.
So just help me clarify. I want to start with the what's going on with Uber right now,
Right.
because I've completely missed the bus on this again due to I had to deal with some family stuff last week.
Yeah,
Couldn't
totally.
stay up on the news. Help me.
Do you want it?
This thing, well, it's. I think a lot of people have already expressed concern about Uber and their business practices to begin with. So, as we had mentioned on the show, getting rid of surge pricing, especially while a taxi strike was going on, a lot of people probably saw that as just like a craven effort to, exploit the situation, get more customers.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't during that hour, it certainly, like, a lot of people were already outraged and inflamed about what was going on here. It's not surprising that Lyft, a major competitor, jumped in and said that they were going to put up, what was it, $1 million
About
for
like $3 million.
yeah. So Lyft was also trying to at least take advantage by saying, "Hey, we're not the bad guys here." But I think the
Sorry,
there
it was
already,
$1 million.
It was
I
$1
don't know where I
million.
got
Yeah.
three from.
Thanks for checking.
Yeah.
$3 million was from Uber, actually, to support their drivers. But I think that the ground was already rather fertile for people to go and do the hashtag delete Uber thing, because their CEO has been working with Trump as like in an advisory capacity.
During the inauguration, they were protesting outside of Uber's office, also in San Francisco, where they weren't letting Uber staffers into the building.
Now, is he actually sympathetic to the Trump administration? Is that where the question lies? Because nothing wrong with someone trying to work with an administration.
I don't know
We
if
should
it's-
encourage that. We should be working together more, which is part of a lot of the discrepancy I feel right now. I don't think that he's at fault for wanting to get involved.
I mean, even Uber's CTO like put out a scathing letter, against Donald Trump. So it was one of those things where it was basically, it's not, even though his CEO is an economic advisor for Donald Trump, it's not exactly, Uber as an entire company.
Sure.
Yeah, but
And we were talking about this before the show too, that Elon Musk is also working in an advisory capacity with Trump and hasn't gotten nearly as much flack. And I think, Alfred, you correctly identified that, like, you can much more easily protest against Uber because people use Uber pretty regularly as opposed to Tesla, which, like, what am I going to not buy a Tesla?
It's definitely easier to boycott something that you can actually use,
Fair.
Yeah.
I just got to wonder, though, is there also an element of, is the Uber camp sympathetic to an administration which has become undoubtedly more polarizing, and then Tesla is more of an obligatory position? Is there an element to that?
No, Uber as a company hasn't really put out a whole, like, we support Trump kind of ideal. I think it's usually the CEO, that draws the backlash, right? I mean, you've seen it happen with, like, LL Bean.
Sure, the captain of the ship is the one representing the company at large.
Right.
Yeah.
At the very least, I think that Uber realized over the weekend that they need to present themselves a little bit more clearly as far as what their position is, and they've presented themselves in support of drivers, who obviously, a lot of them have immigrant backgrounds, a lot of them perhaps even come from some of the areas that had been banned, so they want to show that they do support those folks.
Yeah, up until Friday and Saturday, the conflict was, him sitting on as one of Trump's advisors, but now the surge pricing thing is what kind of tipped it over for them, where, why would we're already protesting this by not having any taxi drivers go to or leave from JFK, and that would bring up surge pricing because the demand's so high. And that's the point of a protest, is to disrupt and to kind of make things harder for other people until they realize your problems. And then why in the hell would you just, hey, we're going to get rid of surge pricing for now and
Right.
just make it
But
easier.
going back to my original point, Uber was already controversial to begin with for a number of reasons, including their business practices for the past couple of years. Suggesting Lyft did something like this, I don't know that it would have caused as much of a backlash. Maybe it would have because people were already outraged, they were already protesting, and they were really upset. But I think Uber has continued to be a bit of a lightning rod as a company.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like the ground was fertile
I
for
mean,
people to do
do we
this.
think that's just Uber trying to keep the wheels turning and letting people who really have a message to make their message known kind of thing? Or do you really feel like Uber is kind of at fault here? Should they have like just kept their nose out of that?
I think they definitely stepped in it a little bit this time, and they
Yeah.
know that. So they've been doing a lot
A lot of
try to
damage
really,
control.
yeah, they've been doing a lot of damage control since then
Yeah.
because they realized that they kind of screwed up. At the very least, from a perception standpoint, let's say that like they tried to do everything right and this wasn't intentional or whatever. From a perception perspective, like they pissed off a lot of customers, and I wouldn't disagree with that notion. You know, like that wasn't such a great way to present themselves.
Okay. Thank you for helping me clear
Yeah.
that up. I was really kind of at loss. I'm trying to play catch up here in the last couple of days
Yeah.
and figure out where we're going with this. Let's move back on to the phone before we call it a day.
Yeah.
You got a good comment here from Polar JFX Official. He says, smartphones are interesting, in my opinion, but if companies make phones that kind of look like the previous generation and remove that useful thing that people had gotten used to, that makes a huge difference. So what he's saying is like, it's all part of the puzzle, you know? And one tiny little, broken cog in the machine changes the whole game.
I wonder what that useful thing from the previous generation was if we're talking about the iPhone 7 here.
I don't
Right.
know. I can't imagine if you take a small piece out of the general working operation of how. Yeah.
I think they still sold the analysts expect Apple to have sold 78 million iPhones over the past 3 months, though. And granted, they don't break down exactly how many of those are iPhone 7s and 7 Pluses, but it tends to be more of the newer phones because that's what you're upgrading to. So without a doubt, they're still selling boatloads of these phones, but they're not growing nearly as much as they used to. The iPhone 6, like the first time that hit the market, it was like a crazy gangbusters. I think they had the best quarterly profit of any company ever in history. And we're just not seeing that type of situation anymore. So it's also an expectations game that they were all the way up here before, and now they're just kind of treading water a little bit. So we'll see what happens come September when the iPhone 8 comes out.
I mean, yeah, it's
and
hard.
what's the date on that? September.
We don't know
It's
quite
usually,
yet.
like, within the
it's
first
usually,
week, right?
Yeah, it's usually in September. They haven't announced anything. They
Okay.
haven't even announced that phone's coming, but it's going to be coming at some point. So, yeah, it's just like design wise. And I've heard from other people, like people have commented that like it's a new processor, it's a new camera, it's waterproof. Like there are a number of changes that they've done. However, is that really going to, excite a lot of people to upgrade to the newest model, especially when it's like the base price is $650? So I've continually argued that like probably not, but
Nope.
No.
they're still selling a lot of them.
The loyalists are always going to be there. Statistically, the numbers will remain. But for a long time now, that's been the running joke with Apple is just like, oh, look, they polished the turd a little more.
Right. The problem
even
is
in their-
like
even in
what's
their-
going to replace them?
Their
like
laptops have been underwhelming.
yeah, but like,
Like, they're
okay,
still
from the
fine.
smartphone.
They've got the little bar now, so
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to complain about as far as innovation from Apple these days. The issue is like if you're not going to use an iPhone, what are you going to buy instead if you do have to upgrade? And like the Google Pixel is just getting started, so Samsung's got its own problems.
Yeah.
So what is going to steal the mantle from Apple? Nothing yet. Nothing that I can see.
No.
So
Now, I'm
we'll see
interested to
that.
see what comes of this like renaissance of like cord cutting to the next degree kind of situation.
Mhm.
As someone who absolutely hates cables, which is ironically why I got into the media production field as a career. Don't get me wrong. I make jokes about the headphone thing, but there's a little piece of me that's like, finally.
To get rid of more cords.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no cord. I want no cords in my life eventually. But I think they may have pulled the ripcord a little soon. That's my 2 cents. My 2 cents on that. And
I
I'm
mean,
curious to
yeah.
see where
I
it
think
goes.
a lot of people would agree with you.
Because wireless charging, I love the idea of.
Mm-hmm.
But I like my headphones, and right now there aren't enough wireless headphones
Yeah.
out there to satisfy me.
They're it's not the right ecosystem to go wireless right now is the thing. There's
It's coming like a freight train.
yes, but right now, no. I like there's so many like situations where I think I need my headphones jacks for this thing. Like all these road trips that I'm on with like in my friends' cars that like don't have Bluetooth or anything like that.
Yeah, it's just not ready yet.
Yeah.
Just like
which is why I think it was so courageous of Apple to make this change when they did.
We gotta shut
go
it
sit in
down.
the corner and think about what you just did.
We gotta
shut it down. Shut it down, Ruben.
All right, I think
we
that's
calling
pretty
it?
good. Yeah, let's call it a day.
Okay,
That was great.
all right.
Thanks for having us back, everybody. Sorry again, we
course.
kind of disappeared there for a while. Won't happen again.
Thanks for watching, everybody. The 359 podcast is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, and
I think CNET.com.
of course on CNET.com. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.